What's up? This is Dan Fredenberg for FIGGERRIDOUT.com, and today I'm with ex-offensive lineman for the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Baltimore Ravens, the Buffalo Bills, and the Tennessee Titans NFL teams, Marques Ogden. How you doing today?
How you doing, Dan? Doing well, my friend.
All right, good stuff, good stuff. Thanks again for being here today, Marcus. You're the first professional athlete to be a guest on Figure It Out. And for those of you who've never watched this show before, we have a regular theme in this dream job interview series, which is how do you get there with no friends, family, or cash? So a lot of it is about success. One of the most important skills that I find, though, in working towards success is introducing yourself effectively, though. And I'm not convinced that that's something that professional athletes usually have to do, judging by, like the interviews you usually say. But now you're in the private sector, Marcus, and I'm sure the audience could benefit from seeing how it's done. So can you please introduce yourself, please, Marcus?
Yeah, my name is Marques Ogden. I'm from Washington, D.C. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina with my wife and two daughters. I'm a current national, international keynote speaker, best-selling author, executive coach, consultant, and I'm a former NFL athlete.
Excellent, excellent. And I don't know if you looked me up at all, but this show is pretty serious most of the time. But I believe putting in equal parts of being a complete idiot. So I should start by telling you that because I'm from Canada, like we revere hockey here, right? Do you hang out with any hockey players, or do you know like much?
Yeah, one of my good friends is a guy named Jesse Bullarese, who used to play for St. Louis, and he played for Carolina Hurricanes, and he lives in the Raleigh area, well, Raleigh-Wilmington area now. He's a financial advisor for Merrill Lynch.
Oh, well, there you go. And so, but with hockey, though, are you aware that the average game, it's got about one fight per game on average? Some have two, some have more, but they'll average about one fight per game. That's something that you're aware of?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, good. And did you know that we have names for like different like fighting moves in a hockey fight? Were you aware of that? Okay,
No, I'm not.
so you never heard of jerseying someone before?
No, I have not.
I'm telling you, jerseying people, it's as Canadian as maple syrup, okay? That's when you grab their jersey from behind, like way down at the back, and you pull it over their head before you start wailing on them, right? So they're doing one of these inside the jersey. That's jerseying somebody, so now you know. But that brings
Appreciate
us back to business. My first question for you, and I'll tell you where this comes from. It comes from an author named Malcolm Gladwell in a book called Outliers. But what's the cutoff date for football signups as a kid? Like what month is it?
Usually the cutoff day is going to be somewhere around like July, August. It just depends on when training camp starts. I would say most places is July, but depending upon, if they want to get a late start, it's going to be early August.
And my background is in digital security, so I'm really careful about sharing stuff that you shouldn't be sharing, especially for like identity theft and things like that. Do you mind telling me what month you were born in?
Yeah, November.
November. Okay, that's interesting because like I mentioned the book, and one of the things that they found is that the cutoff dates seems to be one of the biggest reasons why people end up getting into the professional leagues. So, like with hockey, the cutoff date is January 1st. And because of that, you got a lot of people who were born in the first 3 months of the year. Basically, a lot of people have their birthdays really close to when the signups are. And basically, what he was trying to say is that people end up getting the help to be better athletes if you're closer to that cutoff date, because you'll be a bit bigger and more mature too, right?
Makes sense.
Okay, yeah. So he called the term capitalization rates when he's talking about skills. It's the ratio of people who basically they got what it takes versus the number who were actually discovered and given those resources to succeed. Is that a term that when you get to the NFL and you're being scouted, do they leave you more or less in the dark about how the scouting process happens, or does everybody know exactly how it works in general?
I mean, you have a general idea of how it works. Like after your season's over, if you're good enough, you'll go to a bowl game. From the bowl game, you'll go to either Indianapolis for the NFL Combine, or you'll have workouts at your school. And then before the draft, you're going to have workouts at your school again. If you're a quarterback, you might want to throw. If you're a lineman, you go through lineman drills. You might run a 40 or a 10-yard dash and all that kind of stuff. So it's very much a smooth process. The question you have to ask yourself is who's looking at you and who might want to draft you. Then from there, you'll try to figure out what that looks like from there.
That makes a lot of sense. And so, were you familiar with terms like capitalization rate of talent when you were going through to get to the NFL, or is that a newer thing? Or
No, I definitely knew what it was as I was going through that process. Yes.
okay, that's really interesting. And so, my next question is when you're comparing offensive linemen. Like you were. What are the stats that really tell the story of performance? Like I know it from baseball and all that kind of stuff, but what stats?
Yeah. So for Rob's lineman, it's going to be, usually three big areas. One, how many pancake blocks do you have? Putting the guy that you're blocking on his back, and they call a pancake block. Then you have the number of sacks you've given up. So you're hoping that's very, very low, because that shows you have good foot quickness, and you're able to get things done and keep the guys off the quarterback. And then you're also usually judged, well, maybe two other areas. How many yards does your running back have, and how many yards and or touchdowns does your quarterback have? So linemen, it's really hard to judge us off of our stats. Now, of course, when you're scouting linemen, you know what to look for: size, balance, footwork, agility, run blocking, pass blocking, knee bending, leverage, all those type of things. But to the naked eye, that's not really a big, lineman understand or studier. It's like, okay, how many pancake blocks do you have? How many sacks have you given up? How many yards does your running back have? And how good is your quarterback at throwing the ball? How many touchdowns does he have? That's going to really help you as an offensive lineman.
That's really interesting, and one of my favorite parts about this interview so far, like figure it out, like because of the name, it's got a smarter side about it. I'm really trying to, even if the reality isn't that pleasant, I still want to talk about it, and I think it's really really interesting to hear you flex your brain in this, because usually, when you see an interview with a professional athlete, I've heard that you guys, it's pretty carefully controlled on what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say. It's a matter of like, you don't want to give anything that would give an impression that somebody's going to get traded. So that I found, like, at least in hockey anyway, they tend to tell you to say, oh, well, they put in a lot of hustle and they tried to, but, oh, well, we ended up getting it in the end, and just being really pithy and short without getting yourself into any trouble. Is that something that is true in the NFL? Is that something you can comment about being able to use, like having those opportunities to use your brain in an interview and show that you got more going on upstairs?
So you can show you have more going on upstairs by, talking about your team's either win or loss, schemes, which especially after the game is over, like if you won or lost, what worked, what didn't work, how did the other team perform, how the other team's schemes and or schematics, how did they match up against yours, why you guys got the W or you got the L. You can talk about things like that, technical aspects, all that kind of stuff. But before a game, not so much, because you're not allowed to really give away any type of schematics you're going to be doing, any type of play calling, any type of schemes or hints, because people for other teams, especially in NFL, have people that just literally watch interviews, things going out, because only 31 other NFL teams. So if you start talking about, we're about to play the Browns and we plan on doing a lot of outside zone run, stretching the defensive linemen because they don't have a lot of good edge rushers and edge containers, hoping to get the edge and kind of get outside and then bounce downhill to start using guys like Derrick Henry or things like that. Well, if I'm the other team, I'm going to literally put myself in a position where I'm going to make my ends go wider so they line up wider, so it keeps you inside the box and you can't get outside of me, and then I'm going to make you stay inside of what I call my box area where my help is, and I'm going to hopefully stop you from getting as many yards. So you never want to talk about your schemes, schematics, your play calling, your methodology, your attack plan before a game or in preseason, because again, that's not really going to be the real game. But once the season starts and you've completed a game, you can talk about what you did that game. But again, don't start talking about the next game, because you want to give that opposing team any information, any knowledge that they might use against you to help them beat you.
Okay, yeah, okay. But what about like if you think about what generals do, Sun Tzu, things like that. What about misinformation? Is that just too slippery of a slope to say it's like, okay, we're going to do a wide game because they got no wide game, and I hopefully parroted what you just said correctly and didn't make myself look like too big of an idiot. But like if you say that because you're actually planning on doing the opposite or something like that, does saying anything at all, does it narrow down your choices enough that it's still a bad idea even if you're throwing out some information that's actually incorrect on purpose?
Yeah, because they're going to know from your players' schemes what you're more likely to run. So the fact you're talking about it is going to re-alarm their suspicions. For example, let's take Derrick Henry from the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry is a phenomenal running back. Is he great at stretching outside then going downhill? Not great, but he's good. Is he great at running straight downhill because of his size and his speed? Yes. So again, talking about, well, we're going to run downhill between the 1 hole, the 3 hole, and between the 2 hole, 0 hole, and the 1 hole. And if you keep saying that, people are like, oh, yeah, they're probably going to do it because Henry has got the size and got the ability to do it. Or let's say like this, right, Dave? We're going to do a lot of play action this upcoming game. And that's going to be like, oh, okay, that makes sense because Derrick Henry's such a great runner. You're going to try to run play action and get our linebackers to come up and commit, which opens up backside tight ends, backside, receivers, and what we call the little sweet spot between the linebackers and the safety. Well, hell, that makes sense. So again, even if you're going to try to give misdirection information, they're going to know from your personnel what you're more likely to run if you're running, if you give them some type of hint. So if you're planning on running the football a lot in that upcoming game, okay, well, with Derrick Henry, I'm probably going to watch more of the inside run. So the fact you say, I'm going to go outside, you're like, well, yeah, you might, but you're probably not. So that means you're probably going to do a lot of running inside because that's the size and speed that Derrick Henry provides. So it doesn't really do like good to talk about it because then you can just basically do whatever you want to do and not have to think about, well, what did we talk about, on this interview? What did we talk about on that interview? This way you're not basically giving people information.
Yeah, that makes lots of sense. So the next question I have here is again more specific to being an offensive lineman. And just to be clear, that has nothing to do with like using the N word and dropping F bombs a lot, right? It's like, oh, that linesman, he's so offensive. No.
Oh no. So basically, they call it offense because you're on offense. So like when you're on defense, it's defensive lineman. When you're on offense, it's offensive lineman. So that's kind of where it came from.
Right. Yeah, I figured, but I don't know. I just try and amuse myself with stupid stuff. Like my next question here. Like, do you guys play a lot of Madden? Do a lot of NFL players play a lot of Madden?
You'd be surprised. A lot of the young incoming guys do play Madden, especially guys that may not have a family yet and kids and all of that. Then as we grow older and we've been in the game for a while, we start getting married and having children, other responsibilities. A lot of time the Madden games start to come down. Like, for example, I remember when my brother, who's 7 years older, he was drafted by the Ravens. I used to go to his house, his apartment, his house all the time. We would always play Madden, Resident Evil, all kinds of cool games, stuff like that. Then when I got into the NFL, we stopped playing as much as that. We would play like Tiger Woods golf, things like that, because my brother loved golf. But as he got older, the love of Madden kind of just went away. And I feel that happens to a lot of players as we have families and we have other interests besides football. We find other things to do and other games to play that match that interest.
That's really interesting because like my background is all in digital and like computers and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things I did to improve my career is I started to play more games that were like puzzle based and basically it forces you to use your mind in different ways. So there's definitely more to video games than just that. But so one of the things for inspiration for this interview, for these questions that I was coming from, is because of the different internet groups that I'm in, like for example Reddit, where a lot of them, they're like me. They've never really been into sports or anything. And one thing that I think is really changed over the last few years is the rise of esports. Basically an arena or stadium filled with people just to watch a couple of teams fight each other on a video game. Is that something that is on your radar at all? Have you been watching any of that stuff?
Yes, I have. One of my clients is very successful in the cybersecurity digital space up in Canada. He's in Vancouver, Canada. So I've started to learn a lot of that information and those games and those entertainment spectacles through him. And it's been pretty cool. I mean, I'm always the kind of guy to learn new things, get out, try new things. I'm very adventurous when it comes to, trying different things in the game realm or entertainment realm. So I have heard about that. But I heard about that from my client, again, who's out of the Vancouver, Canada area.
Yeah. So yeah, that whole digital side of things. One of the things I find that's interesting. I'm sure there's a ton of crossover, which is being in any professional sport. I think discipline has to be one of the greatest parts, right? It's like you have to learn that discipline, or else you're toast. Somebody with more discipline is just going to destroy you. So I think that's a good opportunity. But the other thing I wanted to do here, I'm gonna change my camera angle to see if I can make this work in a good way. If I put this right over here, because one of the things that happens with people who have a problem with sports in general. There we go. Okay, it's not that big. If I go like this, okay, so this is something like a prime example of people who aren't into sports basically saying that, there's a problem with sports. So it says that this is the inside of Penn Station, and that was demolished. And they said here that it was to build a sports ball arena. Have you ever heard people make jokes about sports ball before?
Yeah, I've heard about it. Yes, I don't know what it was, but I've heard about it. Yep.
Yeah, no, it's just a term where people are trying to, get that idea of like, it's like, oh, I'm so oblivious, I don't even know if it's football or baseball, or I don't even know what it is, so I just call it sports ball. And that's basically what they're doing here, WTF is sports ball. Yeah, an internet joke celebrating how some people are proud to be ignorant of the sports that many hold so dear. And somebody put a neat comment on there, and that brings me back to the interview thing that we were saying. Like we got this reporter here. I was thinking about role playing, but if you're on your phone, you can probably barely see it. You got this reporter here saying you were sportsing pretty hard out there. A lot of sports happened. Why do you think you lost? This guy, the player, says we sportsed our best and scored points, but the other team was sportsing too, and they scored even more points. I'm not even afraid of saying all these things, because you just showed like how much thought is behind your sport. Like it's not just, I don't know, get a bunch of big guys on that time side and just destroy the other ones. But what's your strategy for the next match? We need to stop the other team from scoring points while we ourselves score many points. And it says, now back to the studio for 10 hours of sports analysis. And it says, my income is higher than most countries. So, nice. Yeah, it's not actually true that it's not higher than most countries, but it is a lot of money for sure. I was looking it up before this interview. I saw that a lot of offensive linemen are around the $11 million mark. I saw something else that didn't make any sense. It was saying like something about 750, and I don't know what that means, if that's after like age. Sorry?
No, so 750 is going to be usually right now. I think that's what the base salary is. If you're an incoming rookie, lineman position is 750, and it goes up from there. So that's usually that's the bottom base salary you can make. If you make a roster, then it goes up from there.
Right. Okay. So we only have about 6 minutes left for before you have to go, I know. So I want to get to the ways that you actually help people. Like I saw that you're a keynote speaker and a consultant, a lot of those things. So let's talk about that first. What exactly do you focus on when you're doing your consultation?
So I do a lot of speaking around leadership, marketing and sales, diversity and inclusion, culture enhancement and teamwork. I've worked for companies like the Home Depot, to AXA Equitable, to JP Morgan and Chase, to Merrill Lynch, Bank of America, Siemens, Cisco, NetApp, just to name a few. Mutual of Omaha, Edward Jones. And I do a lot. I usually do one of a couple different facets. A keynote speech where I come in for, an hour and give a keynote with Q&A. I'll do workshops for people. It could be, 90 minutes to a full day workshop geared around a certain topic or vantage point. I do one-on-one and small group coaching for people. I do consulting where I work with organizations like once a month on strategy, development, execution, planning, tactical execution. I also work with companies as a brand ambassador. I own parts of several different organizations that are in true alignment with our brand, which is around hard work, character, honesty, loyalty, trust, discipline. And, I've been very blessed, Dan, work with a lot of organizations, a lot of people really respect our work, where in a time of unfortunate chaos and crisis with COVID-19 and things of that nature, we were able to be self-sustaining and grow our client base. But again, we had to get creative and innovative through doing things virtually to doing things on Zoom like we're doing. And it took a lot, but we now have a good system, a good setup, a good process to make that happen. So I would say those are the main ways we make income, is through keynote speaking, doing workshops, consulting, coaching. We also have a podcast called The Lev and Marcus Show. It's in the top 2.5% globally, most listened to after only about 4 months of being out, 2 months on all platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeart, and of course, YouTube. And just really excited about what we're doing, man, and helping a lot of people, getting the word out and just helping people push through pain points, difficulties, fears, hang-ups, anxious moments, however you want to call it. And we love what we do with our client base.
That's awesome. So the only other thing that comes to my mind, you mentioned I know that you're in the Raleigh-Durham area, and whenever I hear that, I'm a commercial real estate investor. So when I hear Raleigh-Durham, I'm thinking hot, 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 hot. It's a great place to be, great growth and all that kind of stuff. And it makes me think of I heard David Bowie before he died. He was a big one for helping fellow celebrities or high income earners, athletes, things like that, find better ways to make sure that the big income that they had during their careers, it keeps them going so that they're not they don't end up penniless. Is that something that is there a big need for that? Is that something you're a part of with other professional athletes, or?
Yeah, there's a huge need for that, because a lot of times these players don't understand it's the tax implications, and then paying your agent, all these different things. And if you're making $1 million a year, 300 grand is going to be going to the IRS, and you got 700 left. You've got your agent fees, you've got your planning, you've got everything else you need to do to live life. You have your lifestyle. And then from there, you don't get paid again until the following year. So if you have a excessively lavish lifestyle and you're not having any income coming in, you're going to burn through your savings. You're going to burn through the money in your bank account, and you're going to end up in a really bad spot. So absolutely, there's a lot of need for that. Financial literacy education, helping players, active and or retired, make better decisions with their financial needs is absolutely an important thing to me, because I went bankrupt myself in a business venture and I lost everything. So I try to help other athletes avoid my mistake.
Yeah, that's really good, and I think people have heard similar things before, but it brings me to I did another Figure It Out interview a week or two ago with Brian C. Adams, and he helps a family office owned by his wife's family that has $425 million in assets, and they're struggling. Okay, they're not struggling, but I'm saying is that family offices with like $500 million and whatnot, they're trying really hard to make sure they're getting their returns. So if the guys at the top are having trouble, this is not a small thing. This is very difficult to understand how to maintain your wealth, and I think that having a good modest lifestyle is the best piece of advice you can have, and get educated and whatnot. So I'm really
Absolutely.
all right, awesome. So thanks a lot for coming out today, Marcus. The best way to get a hold of you, we caught up through LinkedIn. Is LinkedIn the best way, or through your podcast?
LinkedIn, go to our podcast, 11 Marcus Show, download that, or shoot me an email, Marcus_Ogden@yahoo.com, or go to our website, www.marcusogden.com. Get in touch with us, reach out to us. Thanks for having me on, Dan. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks. And for you up there in the internet, if you could reach down and click the subscribe button, it'd be a really good personal favor to me, because that way YouTube pays for this stuff instead of I do. And then that means it'll just show up in your list of suggestions. Anyway, thanks again for watching. You have a wonderful day. See ya.